Joining with me today is David Dodds, and David is the CEO of Sackers. And David, it's fantastic for you to be here with us today, and in fact inviting us into your leadership lounge, your office overlooking one of the sites of Sackers. So thank you for giving up your time for us today.
That's my pleasure, Colin, and welcome.
Yeah, great, thank you. So David, our kind of listeners want to just find out a little bit about you. So what's your story? How did you get into the recycling industry that Sackers is a part of?
Yes, so at school I wanted to join the RAF, so I went down and had a interview with the RAF. Didn't go the way I was expecting it to go, so I went back and said to my father, not sure what I want to do now. So I said, look, come and have a job with us. And this was in the 70s.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction into the recycling world.
Yeah.
And day one, fell in love with it.
And so I assume just on that day one, you weren't suddenly moved into your current role as CEO. So what's the journey been like for you in the industry? Where did you start, and what sort of things did you experience as you came through?
Okay, so a great question. I started literally on the ground floor. And that was pre-forklifts in those days.
Yeah.
So it was sack barrow, wheelbarrow, lot of manual handling, and it was just literally learning the trade. And it was mainly metals then. We did very little in the waste management side. Mm-hmm. So it was all about metals, non-ferrous metals, ferrous metals, and just understanding from some great experienced people, my father and his colleagues in the business. It wasn't as big as it is now, but they had some people that had been there all their life. So what they didn't know about the metal industry, you could write on a stamp. So I had a great grounding.
Yeah. So this grounding, just working alongside the people, as you say, right from ground level, learning from their experience, what would you say that's brought you now in your current role as CEO? How's that been beneficial to you?
It keeps you honest. It absolutely keeps you grounded, because fundamentally, and if we just talk about the metals industry, fundamentally it's about your understanding of the metals industry, because it's a buying and it's a selling opportunity, and that's what we do. Our job is we convert from raw material into a prime material that one of our clients around the world can use to make something else. So you have to have a fundamental basic knowledge of all the metals. That's what that gave me very early doors, but it also gave me a really good grounding into relationship building, into how do we get the best out of people? How do we work at optimum? And it was honestly, it was a really, I didn't know it at the time. Yeah. You know, because you go to work, you do your day-to-day stuff. I wasn't in management. I was just literally one of the boys sweeping the floor. Yeah, yeah. It's not until you look back 30, 40 years back now and thinking, okay, so yeah, I learned that relationship, and I benefited from that relationship, and I took those skills onto the next level that I did, and just built and built and built. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, but it was all unknown at the time. Yeah, yeah, and I think you're totally right. You don't realise, as you say, it's just the day-to-day, but you're learning those really early skills about relationship, and in your case as well, that some of the core things around the metals that you then turn into components, parts or aspects that you then use to sell on, which is brilliant. Thank you. So you've now obviously moved on from being on the floor, on the shop floor, and you're now the CEO of Sackers. So what does that involve for you? You've hinted a little bit about that in that earlier question, but what does it involve being CEO? It's taking the direction of the business now. Where do we want to take the business in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? What's the strategy? And it gives me the ability to, our chairman calls it, I don't know if it is, should we talk about the chairman? Yeah. Okay. So our chairman calls it about the conducting of the orchestra now. Yeah. So from early doors to being CEO, I was in partnership with my brother. We were joint MDs. He had one responsibility, I had the other, and we jointly took the business forward together. But now Adrian's retired. I've taken on the sole responsibility of the business. It was initially quite difficult to get out of the day-to-day stuff, the stuff that I was doing you just naturally get used to doing it, but actually building the team, putting horsepower into the team, giving them prospects, career, and give them pathways. And that's my job as CEO.
Yeah. And as CEO, David, you talked about developing people. Earlier on, you talked about getting to know people at the shop floor, and then you've talked about these pathways. So how do you practically develop those that are working alongside you and do that strategically as CEO?
That's another really good question. The biggest point of that is actually being able to carve enough time out of your day and giving it to the team that you are developing onto the next platform. If you don't give enough time out of your day to get all this information, all this history, all these relationships that I've built over the last 15, 20 years, if you don't give enough time, the job is only going to get half done. And you're setting people up to fail. So it's really clear that I've got to give the next generation, Gen Z, the time and the opportunity to progress.
Yeah, so it's about giving them time, giving them opportunity, identifying in them kind of what you see in them and how you can develop them in that pathway.
Very much so.
Yeah, fantastic. So what is it about the industry that you love? You talked about starting off in, at the shop floor, and you're still here how many years later?
40 plus.
Right, 40 plus years. You're still involved in it.
44.
Yeah, and I know from talking to you outside of this, you're passionate about it as well. So what is it about the industry that's caused you to stay in it and remain passionate about it?
There's the sustainability bit. It's really interesting to know that aluminium, copper, steel is infinitely recyclable. And of course, that wasn't part of our everyday language 45 years ago.
Yeah, we didn't realise.
Not as a raw 16-year-old. You didn't think about recyclability and sustainability. It was just a job. But suddenly the industry has woken up to, okay, this is a really, really important industry. And we're talking about CO2 savings, and we're talking about so we don't have to do so much mining of the alumina, of the copper ore, of the iron ore. How can we make this a better planet?
Yeah.
And not just what Sackers do, but the industry worldwide. I'm super proud of the professionalism that the industry shows. As an industry, we've been doing it 100, 150, if not 200 years.
Yeah.
But without the recognition that we actually have got in the last 4 or 5 years, it really has gone global.
Yeah.
And I'm super proud to be part of that journey.
So sustainability has been a key thing for you then, and just seeing actually, as you say, how some of these items can just keep being sustainable and looking after the planet as part of that process. Anything else that's kind of kept you in it? Is there anything around the people?
100% people. It's such a diverse group of clients that we sell to, clients that we buy from. Like I said earlier, Colin, we're a conversion business. We buy raw material, be it scrap, be it waste. We convert it into a product that the next person can use without having to dig it out of the ground to make something from virgin ore. The people that we meet on a day-to-day, week by week, year-on-year basis, that's the bit that gets me out of bed in the morning.
So you say people you meet, obviously they're the people that you work with here in Sackers, but you also meet people, I know you go abroad as part of that. So what's the kind of range of people that you meet then, a range of cultures that you meet? Or
Yeah, I have been very, very lucky in my career that there's not many continents I've not been to, because we've wanted to explore what the business opportunity there is, and my job on the commercial side was to go and develop the opportunity and understand, okay, does it have legs? If it doesn't, okay, let's pull back and let's look for the next thing. And I've been very, very lucky that I've been to many, many communities around the world that actually, it's broadened my horizon, no question. The places in India, one of our biggest markets that we sell all our recycled products to. It's fascinating how they operate at all the levels. Business-wise, outside business, the way that they do things. And then, of course, into Southeast Asia, and then, of course, into China. And we're starting to develop a little bit in South America. It's been eye-opening what the opportunities and the stuff that you learn as well. You can bring the ideas back and say this works for them, and but we ought to start thinking about doing these things. And it's definitely shaped me as an individual and also as a businessman.
Well, it's interesting just hearing you talking about your journey and also the current position, meeting people. What's striking me is your ability to learn. You learn from the colleagues you first worked with, learn from your clients you're talking about there as well, and that willingness as a leader to be listening and open to discover stuff. A key part perhaps of leadership, that willing to look, listen and learn, do you think?
Yeah. Look, listen, and learn is really good. I also, as a leader, it's my job to give everybody a purpose, give the business a direction, and that means trying new things. Because a company that doesn't try new things actually is a stationary business, and within a few years it will go into decline. I like the analogy of success is going from failure to failure without the lack of enthusiasm. And I live and breathe that, because I'm probably the most enthusiastic person in this, and we have some very enthusiastic persons, but I just live and breathe this business. And hopefully that permeates all the way through. And what you've done from that is learning as you've gone along, as you've said, as part of that. Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so you've mentioned kind of some of your current role as CEO has been about developing people, and so I'm interested in terms of, as a CEO, what you see your vision as. So some of the people we do work with is really about finding what's your vision and what's your purpose. So what would you say yours is? What's your vision, first of all, as CEO?
It's all about talent management, the next generation. Always wanting to invest in the next generation. So putting a big emphasis on making sure that whatever level the person comes into this business has the opportunity to grow and prosper, and take the opportunity if they want it, if they really want to do it. And I get the big warm fuzzy feeling of imparting my knowledge and experience onto the next generation to help them grow and make them a stronger, more confident person, and have the ability to make decisions without having to refer or push up problems. And when I see people doing that, suddenly thinking, yep, they've got it. Yep, they've got it. That really makes me very warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. So I see this as actually one of the key things about a leader, actually, is about generating more leaders and empowering them, just as you've described, that ability to make decisions, that ability to grow in what they're doing. What would be your kind of methodology then that you use? That I think you kind of talked a bit earlier about you identify something in them. So what is it when you're working with those potential leaders to become, great leaders? What is it? What are the sort of things you look for to identify that they're the right characters for your business?
I think for me that's very, very simple. The height of their attitude will determine the depth of... I got that wrong.
You can start again. For me it's very simple because Ben can edit that.
The depth of their attitude will determine the height of their altitude.
Like that. Depth of their attitude will determine the height of their altitude.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at attitude, if we probe this one a bit further, what is it about attitude that you look for? Because I think for our listeners, if they're thinking, how do I grow leaders within my business? What is it about attitude that you particularly pick up?
People who really want to continually improve, who have a continuous improvement mentality.
Yeah.
And you absolutely can teach it, but it's much easier if they have from day one come through a system and it doesn't matter what part of society they live in. If they have a mentality to always want to be better than they were yesterday, Colin, the rest is easy.
Yeah.
It really is easy.
Yeah.
Because any leader will absolutely invest in the right person at the right time, because it's the investment in people that will determine the success of your business.
So it's that real sense that they want to grow. So they have that growth mindset. They're like a sponge, willing to take feedback and all because they want to become better.
And also putting the pathways in and also giving them support as well, because in the rawest form, we actually want people to fail a few times.
Yes.
Because they've got to know what that tastes like. And have the ability to allow people to fail actually will then very often make them a little bit hungrier, thinking, that tasted horrible. I didn't like that. And it allows them to form a bond with their colleagues, to say, their peers, say, look, I've got this particular problem. This is what I'm going to do. Put some feedback on that. So you are reaching out. This is at their own peer level, and not pushing the problem up to their line manager, allowing them to make their decisions. Take some conversations from their colleagues. But if you allow them to fail, then they've got the opportunity to get stronger at all times.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because I think it gives them also, they learn some strategies then, that if I am in a position of failure, what are the steps I do to grow and move out from it as well, 100%, don't they?
Yeah.
But as I'm hearing you talk about this, I think it's spot on in terms of leadership, but it takes guts as a CEO to allow that to happen, because ultimately, our business is, in your case, it is here to make some money, and that failure could mean that it might not make quite so much money in that moment. So how do you juggle that tension as a CEO? Because again, I'm sure a number of my listeners are going, we wholeheartedly agree with that, David, but what if it's going to cost us? How do you juggle that?
With parameters. So they will have certain expectations, and there'll be a reporting structure that if it goes over their budgeted number, then they do need to seek further advice or some management, higher management information to let them get to the decision that they need to get to.
Yeah.
And of course, what we're trying to do is not take that decision making away, if they're really unsure and the number becomes quite big, then that's, of course, we don't want to lose lots and lots of money.
Yeah.
But ultimately, people will only learn from failure. Like I said, success is going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
As long as people don't lose that enthusiasm to win, then the rest should be easy.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you talking about is you put some safety parameters in there, so that's helpful and safe for the business.
Yes.
But by allowing them to operate within those parameters, it means they can learn things and grow from things.
Yes.
And ultimately, then of course, it makes them even stronger future leadership.
Yes.
I was hearing somebody say the other day about where they'd made a big mistake, lost lots of money for their company, and they were then talking to their boss and saying, "Oh, I assume you're going to sack me now." And he said, "Why would I sack you? We've just paid for the most expensive professional development that we ever could have paid for."
Yeah.
And so you've learned from that now, and you'll become greater and stronger as a result of
absolutely.
it. So, but what you're talking about is just providing some parameters that keeps that safe as part of that. So that's fantastic. So David, I'm just hearing you talking about the way you want to develop people and identifying people. For me, heart and character is quite important as leaders. A heart for the people we work for, and I'm already picking that up from you. And then our other one is around character, doing the right thing even when no one's looking. So how do you, as a CEO, as a an example leader to others within your organisation, how do you maintain good character? You strike me from our previous conversations meeting in the Suffolk Chamber as a man of good character. So how do you maintain that and model that to the leaders within your organisation?
It's a really great question. It's very often done without too much thinking about it. I like the bit about it's doing the right thing when no one's looking. As the part owner of the business, and also the CEO, it would feel really strange if I didn't do it for the 110 people and their families at any given time. I've got 110 people in the business that I'd walk over hot coals for, because I know that they have my back 24/7. So actually doing the right thing when no one's looking, how do I continue doing that? I think that's quite an easy ask, and it's for the future of the business and making sure that the next generation see what I do on a day-to-day basis and pick up those habits.
Yeah. And what I'm picking out from that is just, you said you do it almost automatically, and it's because you are automatically thinking about, exactly as you said, the 110 people who work here and their families, and you have a heart for them and they have a heart for you. And actually, we were saying off camera beforehand how we notice that just when we visit Sackers, that there's about a relationship between people who work here and the CEO, and that doesn't come by accident, does it? It comes because you look out for them and therefore they look out for you.
Yes.
When you're then looking to develop people within your organisation, is it the same thing around their character that you look out for, or are there other aspects around maintaining good character you look for in those that you're developing too?
It's around their people skills. Because commercial skills can be, and depending on what part of the business that they're coming into, their people skills are probably the most important bit to get right. Because what we can't afford to do in any organisation is to insert a rotten apple into an organisation that's well greased and moving on. We have a very good culture running through the business, and we want to maintain that at all times.
So it is, as you say, the culture's key. So bringing people in of that same ethos and mindset and is key to maintaining that. Yeah. So as we kind of draw our interview towards the end, we've got a chance for one or two more questions, and then we're going to ask you, as we do traditionally on this podcast, for your top tip. So when you are looking to work with people, you talked about creating that kind of culture and maintaining that culture. What is it that you look for then when employing staff as well to come into that team? Are there any key aspects?
The very first time I will meet someone, I just check for the smile.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Because then that tells me the type of what the next 5 minutes is going to be like. And of course, they might be as nervous as hell.
Yeah.
In which case, there's going to be no smile. But of course, you will pick that up pretty quickly. And my job is to put them at ease. Say, okay, let's just take a bunch of coffee. Let's just talk about the football. Did you watch the rugby? And just that's my role. But I do see the smile in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And that tells me that actually whether they're completely and utterly approachable and whether they are culturally what we're looking for in this business. Yeah.
So I think that's amazing, isn't it? We can read all these leadership books, but actually it comes down to something as simple as what's their smile like? How do they engage with people? And then that tells you whether that's a cultural fit for your organisation.
100%. And I'm sorry, it's not more dynamic or anything like that, but it's a really simple metric for me. Yeah. If I can, if they're really pleased to see me because they know what they're coming in for, then that's a really good starter for 10.
I think what I love, David, about this is, for me, leadership often is very simple, and it is often about those simple things like how do they smile when we first meet them? And that's what I think we want our listeners to be picking up on is the simple basics. We focus on that, and you talked about this is our culture, and therefore we look for people who fit that culture. And our culture is one where actually we're looking out for each other, and therefore the way people smile will give me an indicator that they're going to be one of those people.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't overcomplicate it.
So, David, kind of as we pull our kind of session to a close, we'd love to spend more time chatting even further, hearing more about your story. But what we've picked up is this real sense for you that you have a heart for your people, and they have a heart for you, that you've learned lots over the years in terms of the people that you've met, both that you work with here, but also customers. We've heard this real sense of that ability of looking out for the simple things like the smile, and particularly looking at how you develop people as CEO. You see this as a key part of your role. But what for you would be your top tip or top tips in terms of leadership for our listeners?
The very best tip is do not underinvest in your people. You cannot put a price on training and paying the right price for the right person at the right time. CapEx, all that infrastructure stuff, that's really important because you've got to do the manufacturing bit as well, because that's exactly what we are. We are manufacturers. But if your people are not right in the first place, then all that manufacturing capability just sinks away when you haven't got the right people and they haven't been trained correctly. So invest the right price in the right people at all times.
Brilliant. Love that, because there's such clarity, isn't it? Again, we talked about going back to those basics and doing those well. Find the right people, invest in them, and you will get them contributing to your organisation, which then actually brings even more benefit. In your case, as you
100%
manufacturing.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, brilliant. David, it's been fantastic. Thank you for giving up some of your time.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, here in the Leadership Lounge, which is here at Sackers, and for those who are watching and listening, you can hear this is a real live site, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We've got it happening behind us.
Noisy and dusty.
And thank you for your time. Thank you for your lessons around leadership and telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey. It's been fantastic.
My pleasure, Colin. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for joining us on the Leadership Lounge. We look forward to you joining us next month, where we'll meet another one of our guests. But thank you today for David and for sharing his wisdom with us.